Hi guys, and welcome to Quiet Voice Podcast channel. Tonight we are sleeping in a 1962 overnight train, rolling through heavy snowfall toward Vermont's quiet white villages. Outside your window, the platform lamps glow like small moons in a storm, and snow gathers on suitcase handles, hat brims, and the shoulders of travelers who are trying very hard to look calm. So, before you settle into the story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, and as you get comfortable, tell us where you are listening from, and what the local time is where night has found you. Perhaps your room is warm, perhaps rain taps at your window, perhaps, like the train before us, your thoughts are ready to move slowly into the dark. Now, it's time to rest. You stand beneath the wide roof of the station, wrapped in the soft confusion of winter travel. The year is 1962, and the air smells of wet wool, cold iron, coal dust lingering from an older age, and coffee poured too long ago into thick white cups. Snow falls beyond the platform canopy in heavy, patient sheets, not rushing, not dramatic, just certain. It covers the tracks with a thin white skin, while the rails themselves shine through, black and narrow, like two lines of ink drawn across a sleeping country. The overnight train waits beside you, breathing. Steam curls along its lower edge and slips around the wheels. The cars are dark green, or perhaps a deep maroon under the station lights, their paint made richer by the storm. Windows glow amber from within. Behind each one, there is a little square of human life. A man folds a newspaper with careful annoyance. A woman adjusts a scarf around a sleeping child. Someone lifts a paper cup to their mouth and then stops, watching the snow as though it has brought private news. You hold your ticket in a gloved hand. The paper is stiff, with printed lines and clipped corners, a small permission to surrender control for the night. In this age, records confirm that railroads still carry mail, packages, business travelers, students, soldiers, holiday visitors, and families crossing distances that feel larger than they do on a modern map. The interstate highways are growing, yes, and airplanes are beginning to steal the glamour from the rails. Rude little metal birds that do not even let you admire a village church at midnight. But here, on this snowy platform, the train still has dignity. It does not hurry to explain itself. A conductor moves along the cars, his dark coat dusted white across the shoulders. His lantern swings gently in one hand, not because he needs the light under the station roof, but because ritual matters. He checks his watch. He looks down the platform. He knows the weather, the timetable, the impatience of passengers, and the old truth that snow can humble any machine, even one built of steel and thunder. His voice rises in a measured call, inviting travellers north, and the sound carries through the storm with a calm authority that makes everyone believe the world still has order. You step closer to the train and feel warmth pulsing from the open vestibule. The metal steps are damp and flecked with snow. A porter stands ready, steady as a curved figure, helping passengers with bags that seem twice as heavy because winter has opinions about everything. He takes a suitcase from an elderly gentleman, nods to a mother guiding two sleepy children, and somehow keeps the line moving without hurry. Oddly enough, a curious footnote from old winter travel law claims that some passengers tucked an orange, a peppermint tin, or even a folded handkerchief scented with lavender into their overnight bag to fight the stale smell of steam heat. It sounds fussy until you imagine a long night of damp coats, cigar smoke, and boiled coffee. Then suddenly the orange becomes a tiny act of civilization. Around you, the station performs its small orchestra. Boots scrape. The station clock ticks with a stubborn face. A baggage cart squeaked under canvas mail sacks. Somewhere, a bell rings once, then again, and the notes seem to vanish into the falling snow before they reach the far end of the platform. The sound makes the night feel larger. It also makes you feel safely small, which is one of the secret comforts of travel by train. You do not need to steer, you do not need to choose the road. You simply enter, sit down, and allow the dark country to carry you. The passengers gather like pages from different books. A salesman in a narrow tie guards a sample case as though it contains treasure, when it may only contain combs, sewing needles, or little bottles of tonic with heroic promises. A young couple speaks softly near the door, their faces close, pretending the whole platform is not listening. A schoolteacher with sensible shoes keeps a mittened hand on a stack of papers tied with string. An older farmwoman watches the snow without surprise, because Vermont weather has never cared for anyone's schedule, and she has made peace with this arrangement. Scholars continue to argue over whether mid-century train travel was truly more communal than travel today, or whether memory has polished away the cramped seats, delays, cold platforms, and the mysterious sandwich that tasted mostly of wax paper. Still, standing here, you feel the argument soften. Whatever the truth, this place gathers strangers into one shared pause. The storm falls on everyone equally. The train waits for everyone together. For a few minutes, no one is fully private. You look along the length of the cars, where snow clings to the roof edges. The wheels give a quiet metallic creak, as if the train is dreaming of motion before motion begins. A red signal glows beyond the platform, blurred by flakes, steady and solemn. Past that light lies a route through dark towns, frozen fields, river bends, and pine hills climbing toward Vermont. There will be sidings where freight cars sleep under white blankets. There will be crossings where lonely warning bells speak to empty roads. There will be stations with names painted on wooden boards, half hidden by snow, names that seem less like destinations and more like promises whispered from the past. You take one last breath of platform air. It is sharp in your nose, touched with smoke and frost, then you lift your foot to the metal step. The porter offers a hand, and you accept, because balance is noble, but falling backward into a snowbank with luggage is not the graceful historical immersion anyone requested. Warmth meets you at the doorway. Behind you, the platform lamps glow dimmer through the storm. Ahead, the sleeper car waits, softly lit and narrow, filled with the hush of folded coats, polished wood, and the first gentle sway of a night not yet begun. The conductor gives another call. Doors begin to close one by one with firm and satisfying sounds. The station slips into a quieter mood, as if it too is preparing to sleep. Beneath your fare, the train shivers. Not much, just enough to tell you that steel has awakened. The engine exhales somewhere ahead, deep and patient, and the couplings tighten through the cars with a slow chain of clinks. You stand inside the threshold, neither gone nor still, held in that delicious little moment when a journey has become certain but has not yet taken you away. Outside, heavy snow keeps falling, covering footprints almost as soon as they are made. Inside, a passageway glows with golden light. You move forward, one hand brushing the wall for balance, while the train gathers itself like a great animal in the winter dark, and as the platform begins to drift behind the glass, you feel the night open gently before you, white, quiet, and waiting. The sleeper car receives you with the quiet confidence of a well-kept hotel that has learned to move at night. Your shoes cross from the cold metal vestibule onto a narrow carpet runner, and at once the storm outside becomes something softened and distant. The air is warm, faintly dry, touched with the scent of varnished wood, wool, brass polish, and radiators working with more enthusiasm than subtlety. A pleasant little furnace of a place, really. The sort of warmth that makes your cheeks prickle and your gloves feel suddenly unnecessary. You walk along the corridor, one shoulder nearly brushing the wall, because the sleeper car is not interested in wasting space. It is a narrow kingdom, built for patience. On one seat, doors lead into compartments and roomettes. On the other, windows turn the falling snow into pale streaks against black glass. Every few steps, the train gives a small sway, and your body learns the motion without being asked. You place one hand lightly against a polished wooden panel. It feels smooth, a little worn where generations of travellers have done the same thing, steadying themselves while pretending they have perfect balance. Naturally, everyone pretends this. The train knows better. A porter guides you with a soft voice and practiced courtesy. His jacket is neat, his shoes shine, and he seems to know the car the way a lighthouse keeper knows stairs in the dark. Mainstream accounts of American rail travel confirm that sleeping car porters were essential to overnight service, handling luggage, making berths, assisting passengers, and keeping the long hours of the journey orderly. The work demanded memory, stamina, and grace, especially when passengers expected comfort without noticing the labour that created it. You feel that quiet labour around you now, in the folded blankets, the brushed steps, the clean glass, the water cups placed just so. Your compartment is small, but it has a dignity that larger rooms often lack. There is a cushioned seat facing the window, a little ladder folded away, a netted rack for luggage, a small lamp with a mellow shade, and metal fixtures that catch the light like coins in a drawer. The brass has been polished, though not to a museum shine. It has the warmer glow of things used daily and cared for because they must keep working. The door slides with a satisfying sound, the latch clicks into place, and suddenly the world narrows into privacy. You remove your hat, then your coat. The coat holds the smell of the platform in cold air and snow, and for a moment it seems almost rude to hang it up in this warm little room. Outside the window, flakes move past in slanting lines. Inside, hoi, the seat cushion gives beneath you with a tired sigh. You sit, and the train answers with a deeper sway, as if agreeing that this is the correct decision. There is nothing important to do yet. Imagine that. A rare luxury. No screen demanding attention. No endless list pretending to be urgent. Just a small lamp, a window, and the permission to be carried. Around you. The sleeper car settles into its evening manners. A suitcase bumps softly in the corridor. A door opens and closes. Somewhere nearby, a woman laughs once, then lowers her voice, as though laughter itself might disturb the snow. A child asks whether the train has beds, real beds, and an adult answers yes with great seriousness, because this is one of the miracles of the arrangement. You're not merely travelling, you're being invited to sleep inside motion. A curious side note from railroad life says that some travellers brought their own pillowcases, not from distrust exactly, but from loyalty to the scent of home. Others carried slippers, playing cards, a flask, a detective novel, or a little packet of crackers in case supper felt too formal. There is something wonderfully human about that. Even in a polished sleeper car, even under brass lamps and railroad regulations, people still prepare for the night like nervous squirrels. One never knows when civilization may fail and leave you with only 2 crackers and a mystery story. Your room includes a wash basin tucked cleverly into the wall. You fold it down with care, admiring the strange optimism of compact design. The mirror above it is small and slightly unflattering, as train mirrors often are, perhaps because they spend all night judging people under weak light. You look at your face and see the mild astonishment of someone entering another rhythm. Your cheeks are still pink from the platform. A few melted snowflakes darken your collar. Your eyes look more awake than you feel. Arguments remain divided over whether the decline of sleeper service came mostly from faster highways, cheaper flights, changing business habits, or the steady impatience of a nation that began to treat slowness as a defect. Yet inside this car, speed seems less important than continuity. The bed is not made yet, but its promise is already present. The window is not a screen, but it holds the whole night. The corridor is not grand, but it's alive with small human ceremonies. You notice the textures one by one, the rough weave of the blanket folded at the end of the seat, the cool round knob of the reading lamp, The faint ribbing on the carpet beneath your shoes, the stiff paper sleeve around glass, the quiet scratch of the timetable tucked beside the seat, printed with station names that sound like sleep murmurs. The train is an object of steel and schedule. Yes, but also of cloth. Wood, skin, breath, and habit. The porter returns to ask whether you will want the berth made up later. His tone suggests that time on a train has its own etiquette. Beds appear when the evening has ripened. Shoes come off when the body admits the truth. Curtains close when the outside world has done enough. You nod, and he nods back, sealing a small agreement between traveller and night. The wheels begin to find their deeper rhythm beneath the floor. Not loud, not yet, but constant. A rolling murmur rises through the compartment, felt first in your feet, then in your ribs. The lamp trembles faintly. The window reflects your room back at you, so that for a while you see both the snow outside and your own small refuge layered together. Warmth within, winter beyond, brass, wool, glass, and darkness. You lean back into the cushion. The sleeper car holds you in its narrow, glowing care, and the storm slips past without needing to be fought. The first movement is almost too gentle to trust. The sleeper car gives a slow pull, then a second tug, and the platform begins to slide away from the window, as if the station itself has decided to drift backward into the storm. You sit still, but the world starts moving. That is the old magic of rail travel. Your body remains in a cushioned seat, your hands resting quietly, while lamps, benches, signs, and bundled figures begin to pass like scenes from a silent film. Outside, the station roof recedes into flakes of white. The platform lights stretch into blurred golden beads, then break apart behind the glass. A porter walks briskly along the edge of the platform, one hand raised toward the departing cars for a breath. His dark figure is clear against the snow, then he is gone, folded into the storm and the glow. The train gathers confidence. Wheels strike joints in the rail with a measured sound. Not yet the full night rhythm, but a careful beginning. Click, roll, a lullaby still clearing its throat. The city waits around the tracks in layers. Warehouses stand with snow collecting on their flat roofs. Brick walls pass close enough that you can see old advertisements painted in fading letters, selling soap, tobacco, flour, or some proud miracle tonic that probably solved nothing except the seller's rent. Fire escapes climb the walls like black vines. A line of laundry, forgotten or bravely abandoned, hangs stiff under a white crust. In upper windows, lamps glow behind curtains, each room holding a private evening that the train observes for only a second. You feel the warmth of the car at your back and the winter pressing softly against the glass. Your breath does not fog the window because the train is heated with determined seriousness, but your mind supplies the fog anyway. You lean closer. Snow skims across the dark panes, racing sideways now as the speed increases. Telegraph poles appear and vanish, their wires sagging under the weather. Signal towers rise beside the tracks, square and practical, with windows lit like watchful eyes. Records from railroad practice confirm that signal systems and dispatching rules were essential to keeping trains safely spaced, especially in bad weather and darkness. Red, yellow, and green lights were not decorations for a dramatic winter mood. Although they are excellent at that. They told crews when to stop, slow, proceed with caution, or move ahead. Out there, through the falling snow, a green signal shines above the track, and the engine seems to accept it like permission from the night itself. The city thins by degrees. First, the tall buildings step back, then the factories give way to freight yards, where boxcars stand in rows under soft white caps, their markings blur in the snowfall. A switchman in a heavy coat moves near a lantern, his boots leaving deep prints beside the rails. The train passes him with a low rush, and you see him only briefly, a working figure in a world of steel, snow, and rules. There is comfort in knowing someone is awake for the machinery of your sleep. A curious little tale from old rail lines says that children sometimes placed pennies on the tracks and returned later to find them flattened into thin copper ovals, treasured as proof that something enormous had passed. Railroad men were not amused by this habit, and fair enough. The image there lingers: a small coin, a massive wheel, a child holding the result like a secret medal from the Empire of Motion. Human beings will make souvenirs out of almost anything, even danger, apparently, if it fits into a pocket. The train moves past the last crowded blocks. Streets cross beneath iron bridges. Cars creep through slush below, their headlights yellow and uncertain. A bus stops at a corner where 3 passengers huddle under one umbrella, none of them succeeding very well. You watch them from your warm compartment with a sympathy that includes the tiniest spark of smugness. It is not noble, perhaps, but it is real. Tonight, you are not negotiating icy sidewalks. You are being carried north in a room with a lamp. The sky has settled into winter dusk, though the city keeps trying to resist it with electric signs and shop windows. A bakery window flashes by, and then a closed hardware store, then a church steeple dark against the snow. Rooftops whiten, gutters fill, chimneys breathe smoke that flattens and disappears in the wind. Somewhere, a dog barks at the train with great conviction, defending the neighbourhood from this long-roaring intruder. The train, with admirable restraint, does not bark back. Scholars still debate whether the passenger train of the early 1960s represented the last chapter of an older public rhythm, or whether it was already part of a modern system learning to vanish in plain sight. From where you sit, the question feels less like an argument and more like a mood. You see both truths at once. The train is old-fashioned in its manners, with polished fixtures and folded tickets, yet it is also modern, electric lit, streamlined, scheduled, committed to distance. It carries the past and the future in the same heated compartment, which is a rather heavy load for something also expected to serve coffee. The tracks curve, and the city opens into darker land. Snow spreads over vacant lots and low fences. A frozen river appears beside the train, black water showing through breaks in the ice. The train follows it for a while, wheels beating steadier now. The engine gives a distant horn, long and low, and the sound moves through the car like a hand passing over velvet. It warns a crossing ahead, but to you it feels like a farewell to the city. A solemn note sent into streets already disappearing behind you. The last signal lights fade into the storm. Houses become scattered. Then come fields, bare trees, and the first suggestion of hills beyond the darkness. Snow gathers on every branch and rail, softening the country without erasing it. You settle deeper into the seat. The train no longer seems to be leaving. It is simply going, and you're inside its going, warm, quiet, and almost ready to let the window become a dream. The corridor leads you toward the dining car, and the train changes character beneath your feet. In your compartment, the night is private and close, but here the world opens into a little procession of travellers moving towards supper. You steady yourself with one hand along the wall, feeling the gentle push and lean of the cars as the train rounds a curve. The passage between cars is colder, with a sudden breath of iron and snow rising through the floor plates. For one brief moment, the train reminds you that comfort is only a thin, polished shell around great moving machinery. Then the dining car door opens, and warmth returns in a golden wave. The room is narrow, bright, and quietly splendid. White tablecloths tremble on small tables. Silverware lies in orderly lines. Glasses catch the ceiling lamps and scatter little points of light. The windows along both sides are dark now, brushed silver at the edges by frost. So every table seems to float between warmth and winter. Outside, Heavy snow races past in pale streaks. Inside, soup spoons wait with serious dignity, as if soup itself were an important civic occasion. You are shown to a table by a waiter who moves with the balance of a sailor and the patience of a saint. The floor sways, the plates tremble, the coffee pot leans slightly in his hand, yet nothing spills. This is not magic, although it looks like it. It is practiced footwork. And the calm knowledge that passengers become nervous if the gravy begins travelling independently. Railroad dining service in this era often required cooks, waiters, stewards, and pantry workers to prepare and serve proper meals in cramped kitchens while the train was in motion. That fact feels more impressive when you notice how little space there is for a kitchen and how much appetite there is among travellers. You sit beside the window, the chair is firm, the table is small, and the cloth has the faint, clean smell of laundry soap. A printed menu rests near your plate. Its choices are comforting rather than extravagant roast chicken. Ham, potatoes, rolls, vegetables, pie, coffee, tea, perhaps a bowl of soup to begin. The language of the menu is confident. It promises nourishment without drama. No towers of foam, no sauce described as a memory of rain. Thank goodness. Just food that understands winter and respects hunger. The waiter returns with water, then coffee for the gentleman across the aisle, then a basket of rolls wrapped in a napkin. You watch him brace one knee almost invisibly when the train shifts. He sets the basket down with a neat motion, and the rolls give off a faint yeasty warmth. Butter waits in small squares on a chilled dish. You spread it across the bread, and it softens slowly, like a small sun rising over flour. Outside, the world is pure movement and cold. Inside, butter becomes an event. Sleep travel has a way of making simple things feel ceremonial. A curious dining car legend claims that some regular passengers judged an entire railroad by its pie, not by speed, not by punctuality, not by the elegance of the locomotive, but by pie, apple, mince, lemon, custard, berry when the season allowed it. One can pretend this is unreasonable, yet secretly it makes perfect sense. A train may cross mountains and rivers, but if the pie arrives tired, confidence suffers. Civilization is fragile like that. Your supper comes on a heavy plate, hot enough to cloud the air above it. The roast chicken is plain, tender, and lightly salted. Potatoes sit beside it with brown edges. Green beans rest obediently in their corner. A small dish of cranberry sauce adds a jewel-coloured brightness that seems almost brave in the dim winter light. You take a bite and feel the meal settle you. The rhythm of the wheels enters the act of eating. Fork lifts, car sways, fork pauses, car steadies, you learn the timing. Everyone does. Around the car, conversations rise and fall. A businessman discusses road conditions with a man who clearly does not wish to discuss road conditions but has been trapped by politeness. A mother cuts meat for her child and tells him not to press his nose against the frosted glass. Naturally, he presses it again. Two older women compare church suppers with the sharp expertise of generals reviewing a campaign. Somewhere near the end of the car, a laugh breaks out, brief and warm, then softens into murmurs. Historians still disagree about whether railroad dining cars represented a genuine public luxury, open to many classes of travellers, or whether they were carefully staged performances designed to make railroads seem more refined than ordinary travel truly was. Sitting here, you sense both possibilities. The meal is formal enough to make you sit straighter, yet the swaying car, the clink of plates, and the child with the window fog on his nose keep it human. Elegance and awkwardness share the table quite peacefully. The waiter pours more coffee. It is dark, hot, and strong in the old style, the sort of coffee that does not ask how you feel about it. Steam rises and carries a bitter fragrance through the car. You add cream from a small pitcher and watch it bloom pale in the cup. The sound of the train deepens under the floor, a steady rolling measure that makes every conversation seem wrapped in cloth. Dessert arrives as a wedge of apple pie. The crust flakes under your fork. The filling is soft, cinnamon warm, and just sweet enough to make the storm outside seem respectful. You eat slowly. The windows have become nearly opaque at the lower corners, silvered with frost and breath and weather. Beyond them, a signal light appears for a second, green and blurred, then vanishes into white darkness. When you rise from the table, the dining car feels dreamlike, a room of lamps and plates carried through a snowstorm by steel. You walk back with supper warming your body, the taste of apples lingering, and the quiet knowledge that the night has grown deeper, softer, and much easier to trust. The window beside your seat has become a dark mirror, carrying your face in the snowy country at the same time. You see your own reflection faintly, softened by lamplight, and beyond it the night breaks open in brief white flashes whenever the train passes a signal, a crossing lamp, or the porch light of a lonely house. The glass feels cool when you rest your knuckles near it. The car is warm, but winter keeps one hand on the other side, reminding everyone not to become too proud of steam heat. A small lounge space gathers the restless and the talkative. No one calls it a grand salon, because even in 1962 people know when a word is trying too hard. It is just a comfortable corner with facing seats, narrow tables, ashtrays polished by use, and windows large enough to make the storm feel invited. Travellers drift in with coffee cups, folded newspapers, knitting bags, and the mild courage that comes when strangers know they will not remain strangers for very long. You sit near the window, and a man across from you folds his hands over the handle of a leather case. He has the careful posture of someone who has spent years riding trains for work. His tie is loosened by 1 dignified inch, which may be his version of rebellion. He tells you he sells machine parts to mills and small factories from Massachusetts to northern Vermont. His route follows river towns where brick buildings stand beside falls and dams, and where winter mornings begin with whistles, lunch pails, and boot-striking frozen sidewalks. Records from mid-century New England show that many river valleys still held textile mills, paper mills, machine shops, and small manufacturing plants. Even as older industries were facing pressure from new technology, cheaper labour elsewhere, and changing markets. The man does not say all that in a lecture voice, thank heaven. He simply describes doors opening before dawn, men shaking snow from their caps, women tying scarves under their chins, and the yellow glow of factory windows reflected on icy water. You listen, and the train seems to carry not only passengers, but whole working days folded into memory. Beside him, an older woman with a round face and bright eyes tells a different story. She's going home to a hill farm near a village whose name she says with quiet affection. Their farm has stone walls, a sugar house, 2 aging horses, and a kitchen stove that behaves well only when praised. She speaks of January cold that makes the boards creak, of milk pails freezing at the rim, of wool socks hung near the stove, of maple trees standing black against a blue-white morning. Her voice has no complaint in it, not because the life is easy, but because difficulty, once survived often enough, becomes part of the furniture. A curious footnote from Vermont winter custom says that some rural families once kept a special shovel just inside the door during heavy storms, not for clearing the main path, but for digging outward if drifting snow sealed the entrance by morning. It sounds dramatic until you remember that a snowdrift has no respect for architectural planning. There is something almost comic about a house needing to rescue itself from the outside, but the woman only smiles and says that winter teaches manners. The train rolls through a cut in the land, and snow presses close to the window. The sound changes, becoming hollow and enclosed. For a few seconds, the car feels tucked inside the mountain itself, then the view opens again, and far off you glimpse scattered lights on a hillside. little golden points held in the darkness. A young man in a college sweater leans forward and says those lights remind him of returning from school for Christmas vacation, when every village looked as though it had been arranged for a painting. He speaks lightly, but there is homesickness in it. He describes a town green buried under clean snow, a church steeple with a clock that loses time in cold weather, and a store where one can buy nails, flour, licorice, mittens, gossip, and probably unwanted advice from the same counter. The others laugh softly. Everyone knows such a store, even if they pretend not to. In places where roads close and hills decide the pace of life, a general store can become a newspaper, a bank of favours, a complaint office, and a theatre of human behaviour. Efficient. Not always memorable. Unfortunately, yes. Researchers continue to differ on how much nostalgia shapes our picture of village life in the early 1960s. Some emphasise neighbourly ties, local knowledge, and seasonal rhythms. Others remind us of isolation, hard labour, limited choices, and that give the quiet pressure to fit in. As the train moves through the snow, which does, you hear both truths in the stories around you. The farm sounds beautiful and exhausting. The mill town sounds proud and uncertain. The village sounds warm and watchful. Human places rarely behave like postcards for long. The storm thickens. Snowflakes strike the window and vanish, each one briefly lit by the lamp inside the car. A woman with knitting in her lap speaks of a brother who drives a plough for the county. She says he knows the roads by fence line, mailbox, and tree shape when the signs disappear. He can tell where a ditch waits under soft snow, where the wind crosses a ridge, and where a traveller is most likely to make a foolish decision with confidence. She says this without cruelty. Foolish decisions are part of weather, like sleet. Another passenger, quiet until now, mentions a village dance held in a town hall heated by a stove at one end and optimism at the other. People arrived with boots crusted white, changed shoes near the wall, and danced while snow buried the roads outside. The train sways, and for a moment you picture lantern light, fiddles, damp coats, and the shy formal bravery of asking someone to dance while pretending your heart is behaving normally. The stories settle around you like blankets. They are not grand declaration. They are smaller and stronger than that. Work remembered, roads endured, kitchens warmed, villages waiting in the hills. Outside, Vermont draws nearer beneath the heavy fall of snow, not as a single destination, but as many lives glowing quietly beyond the glass. The train has settled into its deeper night rhythm now, and the little world inside the cars grows quieter. Conversations fade, newspapers fold, cups are set aside, and the wheels take command of the hour. You sit with the timetable open in your hands, its paper thin and slightly glossy, its columns packed with station names, departure times, arrival times, notes, restrictions, and promises. It is not exactly bedtime reading, unless your idea of comfort is organised ink marching across a page. Yet there is something soothing about it. The timetable suggests that the dark country is not endless. It has order, it has names, it has minutes. A green-shaded lamp glows above the small table, and the printed page turns warm under the light. You follow the route with one finger. The names pass quietly through your mind junctions, river towns, hill stations, places where the train may pause only long enough for mail, a suitcase, 2 passengers, and one sleepy way from a platform. Some stops are printed in bold type, others seem shy, almost apologetic. Yet each name marks a real place with chimneys, porches, dogs, barns, store windows, and someone who knows the sound of this train in the night. Official railroad practice in the 1962 era still depended on printed timetables, employee schedules, dispatcher orders, signals, and careful communication among crews. A passenger might see only the neat page, but railroad workers read a deeper version of the same world. They knew where trains met, where freight had priority, where grades slowed the engine, where a siding waited in the dark, and where winter could turn a simple delay into a long conversation with a shovel. The schedule was not merely a list, it was a kind of map made of time. The conductor passes through the hay, dizzy and almost silent. His ticket punch hangs ready in one hand. The tool is small, metal, and precise, with jaws that nip the ticket cleanly. When he reaches you, you hand over your fare receipt and watch him mark it with a practiced motion. A tiny piece of paper falls away. So small it seems absurd that it matters, yet it does matter. It proves passage, direction, destination. It places you inside the moving order of the train. There is a curious old belief among some railroad collectors that skilled conductors developed personal punching patterns, little marks that could identify who had checked a ticket. It sounds like the sort of claim made by people who own too many drawers of carefully labelled paper, but it has a charming stubbornness. Imagine being known not by a signature, but by the shape of a missing corner. Human beings leave traces everywhere, even in the holes they make. The conductor tucks the ticket back with a nod, then moves on. His footsteps soften down the corridor. You hear the faint clip of the punch again, then the low murmur of his voice. He is part guard, part host, part keeper of order, and part witness to countless private journeys. He has seen people begin vacations, leave homes, return from funerals, travel toward weddings, run from problems, and carry secrets in overnight bags. A train does not ask for explanations, it simply moves. Outside, the night thickens around the windows. You can no longer see much of the land, only brief hints when the snow catches light. A crossing flashes by, a farm lane appears, then disappears. Bare trees stand close to the track like listeners. The train passes a signal mast, and its light burns red behind you for a moment in the glass. The colour floats over your reflection, then is gone. The timetable on your lap begins to feel less like information and more like a spell for patience. 20 minutes here, 43 minutes there, arrival near dawn, weather permitting. That last idea is never printed quite so honestly. Of course, railroads prefer firmness. Snow prefers comedy. Between them, travellers learn humility. Some historians question whether the romance of slow travel hides the frustration people often felt when delays, missed connections, uncomfortable seats, and long waits shaped the journey. Others argue that slowness created a richer awareness of distance, weather, and place. As you listen to the rails, the disagreement becomes almost sleepy. Perhaps both are true. Slow travel can be inconvenient and beautiful, so can many worthwhile things, including family gatherings and making custard from scratch. You fold the timetable along its crease and look at the little grid of times once more. Each number is a promise made against darkness. The train keeps some promises exactly, others it adjusts with dignity. Far ahead, dispatchers and crews tend the route through the storm, while you sit in warmth and receive their labour as calm. That is one of the hidden arrangements of comfort. Someone else is awake with the hard details. The wheels strike a bridge, and the sound changes at once. The car hums over open space, iron ringing beneath the floor. For a few seconds, you sense a river below, black and collied under broken ice. Then the bridge ends, and the wheels return to their regular song. Track, joint, track, joint. A pattern so old and steady that thought begins to loosen. You place the timetable beside the lamp. The page remains open, still guiding the night even when you stop reading it. The tiny station names wait in their columns. The conductor continues his rounds. The ticket in your pocket bears its small, clean mark. Beyond the glass, the storm covers roads, fields, fences, and mileposts. But the train keeps its invisible thread through the dark. You do not need to know every turn. You do not need to count the minutes. The schedule belongs to the crew now. The night belongs to the rails. And you, very wisely for once, belong to sleep. In your ears, the echo of the rails grows heavier, deeper, and more enclosed, as though the train has entered a vast wooden instrument and the mountains themselves have begun to hum. The land rises in darkness beyond the windows. You cannot see the climb all at once. You feel it first through the slower pull of the engine, the longer breath ahead, the firmer tremble under your shoes. The train is working now, not merely gliding. It leans into the storm with the patience of a strong animal that knows the hill by memory. Snow thickens against the glass. The flakes no longer drift in charming little patterns for travellers to admire. They come hard and full, pressing through the black air in dense white waves. Every lamp outside becomes a blurred halo. Every fence post becomes a ghost and vanishes. Pine branches bend under the weight, their needles hidden beneath white ridges. The forest seems to close around the tracks, not in menace, but in solemn attention. It is as if the trees have gathered to watch this long-lit train pass through their winter kingdom. The Green Mountains form the central spine of Vermont, running roughly north and south through the state, and their wooded slopes helped give the region its enduring identity. That plain fact becomes something larger as you feel the train climb among them. Geography is no longer a shape on a schoolroom map. It is pressure under the wheels, snow against the windows, and the slow strength required to move people through high country in bad weather. A mountain range at night does not explain itself. It simply surrounds you. The engine sounds again, its horn drawn out across the white dark. The note moves through forest and cuts stone, past frozen brooks and hidden farm roads, then returns faintly, softened by snow. You imagine the front of the train pushing into the storm, the headlights striking flakes so thick they must look like sparks in reverse. The rails curve along slopes, cross narrow bridges, and enter rock cuts where snow clings to ledges. Somewhere beneath the smooth comfort of your seat, steel wheels hold to steel rail with a faith that seems almost old-fashioned, which is not a criticism. Sometimes old-fashioned faith is exactly what winter requires. A peculiar mountain superstition once held among some rural travellers that if a train whistle sounded unusually low during a storm, more snow was coming by morning. Weather science would raise an eyebrow, perhaps both eyebrows, and reach for an instrument. Still, you can understand why people listen that way. In isolated places, sound becomes a message, a whistle, a crow, a branch cracking under ice, even the strange silence that comes before a heavy fall. All of it seems to carry meaning when roads are buried and windows glow against miles of trees. The car lights flicker almost invisibly. Then steady. A spoon rattles somewhere in the distance. A door latch clicks. These small sounds make the mountain night feel even larger. You sit quietly and let your senses widen. There is the dry warmth of the car, the faint scent of wool and metal, the soft rub of fabric at your wrist, the steady pulse beneath the floor. Outside, there is only whiteness and dark timber. The contrast is so complete that it becomes soothing. The storm may have the forest. You have this little room of light. Arguments among historians and landscape scholars split over how much Vermont's mountain image reflects long rural reality and how much was shaped by tourism, postcards, railroad advertising, and the desires of visitors seeking a quieter America. You can feel that tension in the very scene passing outside. The mountains are real, the snow is real, the labour of living among them is real. Yet the view from a warm train window also makes everything gentler than it must be for those who chop wood. Clear roofs tend animals and coax trucks up icy roads before dawn. Beauty, comfortably observed, can be dishonest. It can also be deeply healing. Humans are complicated creatures, and apparently we brought luggage. The train enters a long curve, and your body tilts slightly with it. Beyond the window, the forest opens for a moment. Moonlight, dimmed by cloud and snow, reveals a ridgeline far above, pale and massive, with dark spruce standing along its crest like watchmen. Then the trees close in again. A glimpse lasts only seconds, but it leaves an impression of heightened silence that no timetable could hold. You are not simply moving north, you are being lifted into winter. Now and then, a trackside sign appears close to the window, its black letters buried under snow. A switch stand flashes past, capped in white. The rails beside yours vanish beneath drifts, then reappear where the wind has scoured them clean. You picture men maintaining these lines through long winters, clearing switches, checking signals, watching for ice, carrying lanterns through storms that would make a comfortable person reconsider every life choice. The railroad may look graceful from inside, but grace often stands on the shoulders of cold hands. The climb continues. The wheels beat more slowly, with a steady determination that enters your breathing. The train does not fight the mountain with anger. It negotiates. It curves, pulls, pauses in its own rhythm, and presses forward. Snow fills the hollows between trees. It softens boulders, hides ditches, rounds the roofs of sheds, and gathers on every branch until the whole world seems carved from one quiet substance. You rest your head near the window, not against the cold glass, but close enough to feel its winter presence. The storm becomes less like weather and more like a curtain drawn around the train. Inside that curtain, time loosens. The mountain forest, the moonlit ridge, the muffled horn, the slow labouring engine, all of it carries you into a deeper calm. The train climbs on through heavy snow, and the dark pines let it pass. Your compartment becomes quieter as the night deepens, and the little lamp on the wall seems to gather all its strength into one circle of honey-coloured light. The seat beneath you has carried you through supper warmth, mountain darkness, and the steady persuasion of the rails, but now it waits for its second life. It is no longer only a seat, it is a bed in disguise, which feels like a polite trick played by furniture on behalf of sleep. A soft knock comes at the door. The porter stands in the corridor with folded linens balanced over one arm, a blanket held neatly against his side, and the calm expression of someone who can turn a narrow room into a bedroom while the floor is moving. You slide the door open, and the hallway behind him glows with low lamps and quiet shadows. From other compartments come the small sounds of evening. Surrender a suitcase latch snapping shut, a shoe dropping to the floor, a page turning. A tired cough muffled by a handkerchief. The porter asks if you are ready for the bed to be made. His voice is gentle, but it carries the authority of ritual. You step into the corridor for a moment, feeling the train sway under your stockinged feet, while he enters the compartment and begins the transformation. His hands know every latch and hinge, cushions shift, a panel lowers, a mattress appears from where no reasonable person would expect a mattress to live. The whole process is smooth, practiced, and faintly theatrical. Not flashy, of course. This is a railroad, not a stage show. Still, there is a quiet drama in seeing a daytime room become a night shelter. In mid-century sleeping cars, porters commonly prepared upper and lower beds, arranged sheets and blankets, handled luggage, and answered passenger needs through long overnight runs. That service formed one of the most recognizable parts of American train travel, especially on routes where passengers expected both order and comfort. It also required tiring work across late hours, often performed with courtesy that passengers remembered more easily than the effort behind it. Watching the porter now, you sense the skill beneath the calm. He spreads the sheet with a quick shake, and it floats down over the mattress like pale water. The blanket follows, heavier and warmer, its wool surface slightly rough beneath your fingers when you touch the folded edge. A pillow is set at the head of the bed, plump but not extravagant. Railroad pillows are practical things. They do not promise clouds, They promise that your neck will remain on speaking terms with the rest of you by morning, which is kindness enough. A curious railway habit from older sleeping car days involved leaving shoes outside, or in a designated spot, so they could be polished during the night. Some travellers tied them together or tucked a note inside, fearing that one black shoe might wander off into the democratic confusion of a crowded car. It is hard not to smile at that. Even in the age of steel rails and published schedules, civilization may still depend on making sure your left shoe returns with your right one. The porter draws the curtain across the window, then pauses to leave a narrow slit so you may still see the snow if you choose. This feels thoughtful, almost poetic, though perhaps he has simply learned that travellers like pretending they are practical, while secretly wanting moonlit scenery. The window shows only rushing whiteness and darkness now, but that is enough. A storm does not need much detail to be convincing. He adjusts the reading lamp within reach of the pillow and checks the latch on the door. The compartment has grown smaller and softer. The bed fills most of the space. Your suitcase rests in its rack above, secure and silent. Your coat hangs from a hook, drying slowly, giving off the faint scent of cold wool. The radiator ticks with little metallic complaints, as if it resents being asked to perform during a Vermont snowstorm. You understand, everyone has limits. The porter steps back and asks if anything else is needed. You thank him, and he nods with that practiced dignity that neither invites fuss nor refuses gratitude. Interpretations still diverge over how to remember the labour of sleeping car porters as a symbol of gracious service, as a demanding occupation shaped by unfair social boundaries, or as both at once. The warmth of this made bed does not erase that complexity. It lets you notice it more quietly. Comfort always has a maker. When the door closes, you're alone with the moving room. You sit on the edge of the bed and feel the mattress shift slightly with the train. The sheets are cool at first, then begin to warm beneath your hand. You fold your clothes with the careful laziness of a person who intends to be tidy but not heroic. The train sways, and you steady yourself against the wall. There is an art to undressing in a sleeper compartment. It involves balance, patience, and forgiving yourself for bumping your elbow on nearly everything. You turn off the brighter lamp and leave only the small reading light. The room changes at once. Shadows soften. Brass fittings glow faintly. The curtain moves a little with the car's motion, breathing in and out against the window frame. Beyond it, snow strikes the glass in quick whispers. The rails below keep their low repeating measure. A sound felt as much as heard. It comes through the bed frame, through the pillow, through the bones of the car, until it seems to rock thought itself. You slide under the blanket. Wool settles over you with the old-fashioned weight, not the weight of burden, but of being held in place. Your feet find the tucked end of the sheet. Your shoulders ease down. The pillow receives your head without ceremony. Somewhere down the corridor, the porter moves to another door, another bed, another small act of night work. The train continues through the storm, carrying sleepers, stories, luggage, and the deep human wish to be safe while the world moves in darkness. The reading lamp waits beside you. The window curtain trembles. The bed rocks gently on invisible waves of rail and snow. You breathe in warm air, wool, metal, and winter, and the little compartment becomes exactly large enough for sleep. The train slows so gradually that at first you feel it only as a change in the rhythm beneath your bed. The wheels lose their long confident song and begin to speak in shorter phrases. Metal sighs, coupling settle, somewhere far ahead. The engine gives a low warning note, not loud enough to startle, just enough to announce itself to the sleeping village hidden in the storm. You open your eyes to a narrow room of shadow and amber light. The curtain stirs beside the window. Snow taps the glass in tiny restless strokes. For a moment, you do not know whether the train is stopping in the world or in a dream. Then a station lamp appears through the slit in the curtain, round and blurred, hanging in the white darkness like a lantern underwater. You rise on one elbow and look out. A village platform slides slowly into view. It is small, almost delicate under the snowfall, with a wooden station house, a pitched roof carrying a thick white burden, and a signboard half hidden by drifting flakes. The name of the town is painted in dark letters, but the storm keeps taking pieces of it away. A single lamp above the door throws yellow light across the platform. Beneath it, snow has been trampled into uneven paths by boots, carts, and the careful shuffle of people who know that ice likes practical jokes. The train comes to a stop with a final soft jolt. Silence follows, but not true silence. The engine breathes, steam drifts along the platform, snow falls with a steady hush. Somewhere near the station house, a door opens, and warm light spills out onto the white boards. A station agent steps into view wearing a heavy coat and cap. His shoulders lifted against the cold. He carries a lantern low by his side, and its glow moves over the snow like a small, patient animal. Railroad records from this period show that village stations often served as more than passenger stops. They handled mail, express parcels, newspapers, farm goods, and messages that connected rural communities to wider markets and families far away. You see that whole network in motion now, not as a grand theory, but as canvas sacks, wooden crates, bundled newspapers, and a man pushing a handcart through snow that keeps trying to undo his work. 2 mail sacks are tossed down from the baggage car with practiced care. They land with heavy, muffled thuds. Another sack is lifted aboard. A crate marked for delivery is passed from one worker to another. The men do not waste words. Their breath smokes in the cold. Their boots scrape the boards. A lantern swings. The storm thickens around them. Yet the work continues with the quiet stubbornness of people who know that weather may complain, but the mail still has opinions about arriving. A curious village station tale says that many depots had resident cats, unofficial keepers of baggage rooms, coal bins, and warm stove territory. Some were loved by agents, some tolerated by passengers, and some appear to have considered the entire railroad a personal inconvenience. You can almost imagine one now, hidden inside the station house, curled near the iron stove, judging every traveller who enters with snow on their shoes. Cats have always been excellent at railway management, at least in their own private reports. At the far end of the platform, 3 passengers wait under the lamp. One is a young woman with a small suitcase held in both hands. Her scarf is drawn tightly under her chin. She looks toward the sleeper cars with a mixture of relief and worry, as though the train is both rescue and responsibility. Beside her stands an older man in a dark overcoat and hat, carrying a parcel wrapped in brown paper and tied with string. A boy near them stamps his feet in the snow, not from impatience exactly, but because childhood energy does not respect midnight. The conductor steps down and speaks with them. His voice is low, nearly lost under the engine steam. Tickets are checked. The young woman climbs aboard first, lifting her suitcase carefully. The older man follows, one hand on the rail, moving with dignity over steps made treacherous by slush. The boy turns once to look back at the station house, perhaps at someone standing just inside the door. Then he disappears into the vestibule, swallowed by warmth and motion and the smell of coal dust and wool. A mild dispute continues among social historians over whether such small stations were mainly practical transport points or emotional centres of village life. The answer, visible through your half-frosted window, seems to be both. A station is a place where goods move, but also where farewells are shaped, where returns begin, where news arrives, where loneliness stands under a lamp and pretends to be only cold. Even a short midnight stop can hold a whole human theatre, though the audience is mostly asleep and the actors are wearing mittens. Across the road from the platform, the village sleeps beneath deeper snow. You can see the outline of a church steeple, thin and dark against the pale sky. A few houses show dim kitchen lamps, perhaps left burning for travellers, perhaps for someone ill, perhaps simply because night in winter feels less severe when one window glows. A wagon or truck is parked near the station, its hood rounded by snow. Beyond it, a line of bare maples marks the edge of the road, each branch holding white along its upper side. The stop lasts only minutes, but time feels stretched. The platform lamp hums faintly. The station door closes. The handcart wheels leave narrow tracks that the snowfall begins to fill at once. The conductor lifts his lantern. A signal is given. The engine answers with a deeper breath. The train moves again, slowly at first, gives in the village to its storm. The station sign slides away. The lamp becomes a soft yellow bead, then a blur, then nothing. You settle back under the blanket, carrying with you the image of mail sacks, sleepy faces, and a steeple held in snow. The wheels regain their rhythm, and the small midnight world fades into the dark like a secret kept by the rails. Sleep does not arrive all at once. It gathers at the edges of your thoughts, soft as snow on a windowsill, while the train rocks you through the hidden valleys of Vermont. Your eyes close, open, and close again. The lamp is off now, but the compartment keeps a faint amber memory of light. The curtain breathes against the window frame. The bed sways with the rails. The storm outside becomes less like weather and more like a lullaby with cold hands. Half asleep, you hear bells. Not real bells. Perhaps the train supplies the rhythm, and your dreaming mind supplies the rest. The metal song under the floor changes into the faint silver sound of sleigh bells along a winter road. You sense a horse moving steadily through blue darkness, its breath rising in clouds, its harness chiming with every step. Snowbanks stand high on either side. A driver holds the reins in gloved hands. A blanket lies over your knees, heavy and woolen, smelling faintly of barn dust and cedar. The road is packed smooth by runners, and the moon turns the whole village road into a pale ribbon. Vermont winters once made sleighs practical transportation in rural communities when snow-covered roads for long stretches, especially before automobiles and improved ploughing changed daily travel. That simple fact drifts through your dream as something felt rather than studied. Snow, which blocks one path, creates another. Wheels become useless, runners glide, a frozen road becomes a route. Winter, with its usual dramatic personality, both shuts the door and hands you a key. The dream shifts, you smell wood smoke. It rises from chimneys in the dark, blue-grey and sweet, carrying hints of maple, birch, and old iron stoves. A village appears as if drawn on frosted glass. Houses gather close to a road, their windows glow low and gold. A church steeple points into falling snow. A store porch stands empty, its posts wrapped in white. Somewhere inside a kitchen, a kettle rattles on a stove and bread cools under a towel. You're not inside the kitchen, yet you feel its warmth. Dreams are shameless that way. They enter any room without knocking. A curious scrap of winter folklore claims that some families listen to the sound of stovewood as a rough weather sign. If logs hissed, snapped, or smoked strangely, someone was bound to announce that more snow was coming. Whether or not the clouds had agreed, it is not exact science. Naturally, it is the sort of household wisdom that survives because it gives people something to say while staring suspiciously at the sky. Still, in a long winter, even a stove becomes a kind of advisor. The train tilts into another curve, and the dream becomes a frozen river. You're standing on the bank, though you feel no cold. The ice stretches pale beneath the snow, with dark seams and trapped bubbles deep below the surface. Along the shore, leafless trees lean over the water. Their branches creak softly. Far off, someone tests the ice with a pole. Another person drags a sled loaded with cut wood The river is road, border, mirror, and warning all at once. You remember that rivers shaped many Vermont settlements, providing power for mills, routes through valleys, and later corridors for roads and rail lines. In winter, those same rivers became altered places, beautiful and dangerous under ice. The thought folds into the dream, and the rails beneath your bed seem to follow the frozen current. Track and river, steel and ice, both carrying you north through sleeping land. No firm consensus has settled the question of how old village legend should be read, whether as memory, entertainment, moral teaching, or simply the winter mind amusing itself during long dark evenings. You sense those legends now at the edge of hearing. A white deer glimpsed between trees, a lantern seen moving where no road runs, a lost traveller guided home by a dog that nobody owns, a covered bridge that groans in the cold as if clearing its throat to tell a story, then wisely decides not to because bridges are old and know when people need sleep. The train's horn sounds far ahead. In your dream, it becomes wind passing over a ridge, snow sweeps across a pasture, stone walls emerge and vanish under drifts. A barn stands with its roof bayed white, patient under the storm. Inside, animals shift in the dark and warm and breathing. Hay smells dry and sweet. A cat leaps from a beam and lands with the solemn importance cats bring to all unnecessary movement. The barn door rattles once, then rests. You drift deeper. The village road becomes a lane through maple trees. The sleigh bells return, but softer now, barely brighter than memory. You pass a schoolhouse with a bell tower, a cemetery where stones wear rounded caps of snow, and a blacksmith shop gone quiet for the night. The forge is cold, but you imagine yesterday's heat still hiding in the bricks. Every building seems asleep, yet every building keeps its own watch. Your body remains in the berth, wrapped in a blanket on a moving train, but your mind wanders freely through winter scenes that belong partly to history, partly to dream, and partly to the strange theatre that appears when you are almost asleep. The wheels keep time. The snow writes and erases. The distant villages breathe under their white roofs. A final image comes gently. You see the train from outside, a line of warm windows crossing a dark valley, while heavy snow falls around it. Inside one of those windows, you are resting. Outside, wood smoke rises, rivers freeze, sleigh bells fade, and the mountains hold their old stories without needing to explain them. The sound of the rails becomes slower in your thoughts, wider, deeper, until even the dream begins to settle. Morning comes not as a sunrise, not yet, but as a pale loosening of the dark. Your eyes open to a compartment washed in grey-blue light, the kind that seems to arrive on tiptoe. The train is still moving, still rocking with its steady winter patience, but the world beyond the window has changed. Night has thinned. Snow remains everywhere, settled over fields and fence lines, but now it can be seen. The storm has softened into a lighter fall, flakes turning slowly in the new dawn, as if even the weather has grown sleepy. You lift the curtain a little wider and look out. White fields stretch beside the tracks, smooth and untouched except where shrubs poke through like little dark thoughts. A line of stone wall runs across a pasture, vanishing under drifts, then rising again near a stand of bare trees. Beyond it, a red barn appears, its colour muted by the morning. Its roof carrying a thick white cap, a silo stands beside it, pale and quiet, and the farmyard is still, but smoke rises from the farmhouse chimney, and that single sign of warmth makes the whole landscape feel inhabited. The train follows a river for a while, and the river moves under ice in dark, narrow openings. Along its banks, willows bend under snow, The water is not fully frozen, and where it shows, it looks black and slow, like polished stone sliding through the valley. You can feel the cold of it even from behind the glass. Yet inside the berth is warm, and the blanket lies across your legs with the dependable heaviness of a loyal old friend. Then, through the pale morning snowfall, you see the first covered bridge. It stands a little downstream from the tracks, crossing a narrow branch of the river. Its wooden sides are weathered, its roof steep and white, its entrance a dark rectangle leading into shadow. For a moment, it seems less built than placed there by memory. The train passes slowly enough for you to see snow piled along the roof ridge and small icicles hanging from the eaves. A road leads into it, disappears inside, and comes out on the other bank, as if the bridge briefly swallows travellers and returns them to the world more thoughtful than before. A clear historical fact rests beneath that charm-covered bridges were roofed largely to protect their wooden trusses and decks from rain, snow, and rot, helping them last far longer than exposed timber structures. The roof was practical before it was picturesque. This is worth remembering, because humans often turn usefulness into beauty, then act surprised when beauty was the plan all along. Vermont became especially known for these bridges, and by the mid-20th century they were already cherished as reminders of older roads, rural craft, and local identity. A road truck appears near the far bank, its tyres cutting dark lines through packed snow. It waits while a man steps down to clear a drift near the bridge entrance. He works with a shovel, slow and rhythmic, shoulders hunched against the morning. The covered bridge stands over him like a wooden guardian, not grand, not wealthy, but enduring. It has known wagon wheels, sleigh runners, early motor cars, school children, courting couples, farm loads, and probably several arguments about whose cow got loose. Every village structure has a private archive of nonsense. Sadly, most refuse to publish. One amusing tradition says that covered bridges were sometimes called courting bridges because their dim interiors offered a brief private moment on otherwise public country roads. The idea may be polished by storytelling, but it has a certain human plausibility. Put young people, a slow horse, winter shadows, and a wooden tunnel together, and history does not need much imagination. The bridge becomes transportation, shelter, and a tiny theatre of embarrassment. The train moves on and dawn strengthens. More barns appear, some red, some brown, some silver-grey with age. Their doors face the fields like patient mouths. A few cows stand near a fence, dark shapes against the snow, looking exactly as impressed by the morning as cows usually do, which is to say not very. Fence posts carry white caps, orchard trees stand in rows, their branches twisted and black, each one holding snow along the top like lines of chalk. A farmhouse porch light fades as daylight grows. You notice how the rail line chooses the valley. It keeps company with water, fields, and roads, curving where the land permits, avoiding the sharpest climbs when it can. This is a geography of compromise. The train does not conquer the valley. It negotiates with it, mile by mile. Outside the window, a second covered bridge appears farther off, nearly hidden by trees. Its roof rises above a road bend, and for a moment it is framed by falling snow and bare branches like a small wooden chapel to passage itself. No agreement has been reached among preservation scholars on how much of the covered bridge image belongs to engineering history, how much to tourism, and how much to a longing for rural stability in a century that kept speeding up. You feel that question gently as the train passes fields and bridges and barns. The bridges were made to solve practical problems, then they became symbols, then people travelled to see the symbols. That is not false, it is how memory often works. It begins with necessity, gathers affection, and ends up on postcards. The dawn becomes silver. The sky over the hills brightens behind a curtain of cloud. Snowflakes now fall more slowly, wider spaced, visible against the dark pines and nearly invisible against the fields. The train windows glow faintly from the inside, but the outside world no longer needs borrowed light. It has its own soft morning. You sit quietly with the blanket around you and watch Vermont take shape piece by piece, river, field, bridge, barn, ridge, chimney smoke, road, orchard, steeple. Nothing announces itself loudly. The beauty is calm, almost shy. The covered bridges do not ask to be admired. They simply stand over frozen water, keeping their wooden bones dry, carrying roads through winter, and holding inside their dark passage the hush of every traveller who ever crossed while snow fell beyond both open doors. The first smell that reaches you is coffee. It comes through the corridor before any knock, before any voice, before the day fully declares itself, dark, bitter, warm, and wonderfully persuasive. It slips beneath the door and tells you that the morning has found the train. You open your eyes in the narrow berth, held for one more quiet breath between sleep and waking. The wheels still murmur beneath you, but their rhythm has brightened somehow. Night travel has a deep sound. Morning travel has edges. You sit up carefully, because the compartment remains faithful to its belief that every movement should involve negotiation. The blanket falls around your waist, the window curtain glows pale at its edges. When you draw it aside, mountain light enters softly, not golden yet, but milky and clean, filtered through snow clouds and reflected upward from fields. The hills rise beyond the tracks in layers of white and blue shadow. Pines stand dark on the slopes. Farm roofs shine where the storm has left them smooth. The whole valley looks freshly made, as if the world has been set out to cool. You dress slowly, balancing one hand against the wall while the train sways. Socks, shoes, jacket, comb, a splash of cold water from the little basin. The mirror gives you back a face softened by broken sleep and train motion. A respectable enough traveller for breakfast, which is all civilization can reasonably demand at this hour. You open the door and step into the corridor, where other passengers are emerging with the same gentle bewilderment. Everyone looks slightly folded from the night, like letters removed from envelopes. The dining car is calmer than it was in the evening. Morning has made people quieter. White cloths cover the tables, and the windows hold a wide winter world instead of darkness. A waiter guides you to a seat, and you settle beside the glass as the train curves through a valley bright with snow. The mountains catch faint light along their ridges, while lower fields remain blue and hushed. Every fence line casts a delicate shadow. Every branch seems outlined by frost. A well-established fact of mid-century passenger service is that breakfast on overnight trains was often served as a proper meal. Not merely a hurried bite. Travellers might choose eggs, toast, oatmeal, ham, fruit, rolls, coffee, and tea, depending on the line, the route, and the season. That sounds simple until you remember the kitchen is moving, the floor is swaying, the stove is hot, and the customers expect their eggs not to arrive as modern art. The cooks deserve a small medal, preferably one shaped like a frying pan. Your coffee arrives first, poured into a heavy cup that keeps the heat well. Steam lifts toward your face. You wrap both hands around it and feel warmth settle into your fingers. The first sip is strong enough to bring back several thoughts you had misplaced during sleep. Outside, a small road runs beside the tracks, its surface packed white. A truck crawls along it, leaving dark tire marks behind. In a farmhouse yard, someone has already shoveled a path from porch to barn. The path is narrow but determined, a thin declaration that breakfast for animals comes before comfort for humans. Toast comes next, set on a small plate with butter and marmalade. The toast is crisp at the edges, pale gold in the centre, and still warm enough to soften the butter into shining pools. You spread it slowly. There is no need to hurry. The mountains are not going anywhere, and if they are being very subtle about it. The train sways. Your knife pauses. The toast waits with dignity. A boiled egg rests in a cup nearby, modest and complete. looking like it has never had an anxious thought in its life. One curious railroad kitchen tale says that breakfast toast could be the downfall of a proud dining service. Leave it too long and it became cold, cover it too tightly and it steamed itself into sadness. Serve it during a rough stretch of track, and it might slide just enough to accuse the waiter of poor character. Toast seems humble until it joins public transportation, then it becomes a test. Across the aisle, an older couple shares a pot of tea and speaks in low voices about a daughter waiting at the destination. A young man reads a newspaper, though he spends more time looking out the window than at the print. A child in a sweater counts barns and loses track at 12, then begins again with great seriousness. The waiter moves among tables with coffee, cream, and quiet corrections of balance. Plates appear, cups are refilled. The morning car hums with small appetite and soft conversation. Cultural historians still dispute whether train dining should be remembered as everyday service, a kind of travelling ceremony, or an advertising performance meant to persuade passengers that rail travel remained gracious in an age of highways and airplanes. As you lift your fork, the debate feels less sharp than it might in a lecture room. Breakfast here is practical. It is also ceremonial. It is also, without apology, persuasive. The railroad is reminding you that speed alone is not hospitality. A highway may get you there, but it rarely brings toast to your table while snowy mountains turn pink beyond the window. The sun finally breaks through a seam in the clouds. It touches the upper ridges first, laying pale gold along the treetops. Then it spills downward across fields and barns, catching the window glass of farmhouses, brightening the ice along a stream, and turning the snow into a field of tiny sparks. The dining car changes with it. Silverware flashes, coffee darkens, faces warm, even the newspaper seems less gloomy, which is a notable achievement for any newspaper. You finish the last of the toast and sit with the cup between your hands. The train continues north through winter morning, steady and unhurried. Breakfast has done its quiet work. It has returned you to the day without shaking you awake. It has given the mountains time to appear, the snow time to shine, and your thoughts time to rise as gently as steam from coffee. The morning train carries you through a landscape where distance still has weight. Roads run beside the tracks for a while, then vanish behind drifts or slip away toward farms hidden by trees. A village appears, passes, and leaves only a church steeple, a feed store, and a few smoke-blue chimneys in your mind. The rails remain, shining black through the snow, joining one small place to the next with a certainty that feels almost tender. You sit near the window and watch the countryside wake into work. A man in a wool cap opens the door of a shed and steps out with a pail in each hand. A woman crosses the yard toward a clothesline, pauses, considers the falling snow, and wisely returns inside. A dog follows a tractor track, nose low, convinced that the morning contains important information. The train passes too quickly for anyone to become a full story, but slowly enough for each life to leave a trace. In rural Vermont and across much of northern New England, railroads once carried far more than passengers. They moved milk, lumber, livestock, mail, newspapers, farm tools, coal, grain, and manufactured goods, linking villages to regional markets and to cities beyond the mountains. That plain fact changes the meaning of the view. The railroad is not only scenery, it is a lifeline laid in steel, running past barns and mill ponds, past schoolhouses and general stores, past fields where winter turns every chore into a negotiation. At a small freight siding, the train passes boxcars standing beside a low warehouse. Snow has gathered on their roofs and along their couplers. A man with a clipboard walks near the loading door, head bent against the wind. Wooden crates wait under a tarpaulin, barrels stand in a row. There is no romance in a cold inventory, not at first glance, but you feel the quiet drama of connection. A crate loaded here may become stock on a store shelf. A bundle of newspapers may carry election news, obituaries, farm prices, and advertisements for boots that claim heroic waterproof powers. A sack of mail may hold a birthday card, a bill, a seed catalogue, a letter that someone reads twice and then hides in a drawer. A curious rural tidbit tells of children waiting for trains not only to wave at passengers, but to collect bits of coal that sometimes fell near the tracks, especially in older steam days. A few pieces could feed a stove or become treasure in a schoolboy pocket, depending on the child and the household. It is a small, sooty image, but it says something useful. The railroad was never only a grand machine. It shed fragments into daily life, and people made use of them because people always do. The train rolls along a river valley where a cluster of houses faces a mill building. Its windows are dark at one end, glowing at the other. Water moves below a dam, black between shelves of ice. You imagine workers arriving with lunch pails, boots wet with snow, shoulders rounded against the cold. The factory may send goods out by rail. The village store may receive flour and nails by rail. The doctor may step off a train after visiting a patient in another town. A student may ride south to school. A grandmother may arrive with a carpet bag and opinions about how the kitchen should be managed. Railroads make reunion possible, which is noble, though occasionally exhausting. Scholars continue to quarrel over whether railroads strengthen rural communities by connecting them to markets and services, or weaken them by drawing young people, money, and attention toward larger towns and cities. As you watch the villages pass, both sides seem to sit together in the same seat. Connection brings opportunity. Connection also brings departure. Train can deliver medicine in a snowstorm, and it can carry a son away from the farm. Steel rails do not choose the emotional mistinning of a journey. They simply make it possible. The car rocks gently and a newspaper rustles behind you. Someone turns a page with a crackle like dry leaves. You think of the papers that used to arrive by morning train, bringing the wider world into places where roads could be slow and radios did not answer every local question. A headline from far away could be read beside a wood stove. Baseball scores, weather reports, prices, political speeches, and marriage notices could travel through snow faster than rumour, although rumour often made an impressive attempt. At the next crossing, a farm truck waits behind a lowered gate. The driver leans on the wheel, wearing a cap pulled low, watching the passenger cars pass. In the truck bed, sacks are covered with canvas. The gate bell rings steadily, bright and small in the cold air. You wonder how many times this driver has paused for trains in his life, counting cars, judging freight loads, knowing which locomotive sounds tired, which conductor waves, which schedule runs late when the weather becomes theatrical. The train glides past a village store with frost on its windows. A hand-painted sign advertises feed, groceries, kerosene, hardware, and dry goods. Inside, someone will be sweeping the floor, filling a stove, setting out cans, and preparing for customers who may buy one thing and discuss 9 others. A rural store near a rail line could be a place where goods arrived. News spread, notices were posted, and neighbours performed the ancient ritual of pretending they only came in for nails. Fields open again, white and wide, the rails run straight for a rare mile, and the train seems to float between fences. You feel the comfort of this connection, the way it binds scattered lives without requiring them to become the same. Farms remain farms, villages keep their habits, hills keep their silence, yet the train threads them together, carrying the practical needs and private hopes of a snowy region through the long morning. You rest your hand near the window and let the countryside pass. Milk cans, mail sacks, newspapers, school trips, market days, family visits, doctors, tools, and letters. All of it moves quietly through the image of the rails. The train is warm around you. But outside, its meaning is larger than comfort. It is how winter villages breathe across distance. The morning has brightened. Yet the storm has not entirely surrendered. Snow still moves across the tracks in long low veils, lifted by wind from open fields and flung against the train as if winter has decided to argue with steel. From your warm seat, the view remains peaceful, almost painted, but far ahead, beyond the dining car, beyond the baggage car, beyond every comfortable lamp and folded blanket. The engine crew works inside a world of gauges, signals, cold glass, and constant attention. You feel their labour through the floor. The train slows, gathers strength, then pulls again with a deeper vibration. The engine does not glide through this country by charm. It is handled, judged, listened to. The engineer watches the track, the signal lights, the speed, the curves, the grade, the colour of the snow blowing across the rails. His hands rest near the controls with practised calm. Beside him, the fireman or assistant keeps watch as well, because winter prefers teamwork. A single pair of eyes is useful. 2 pairs are less likely to be fooled by a drift pretending to be harmless. By the early 1960s, diesel-electric locomotives had largely replaced steam on many American passenger routes, bringing different sounds, different maintenance needs, and a different kind of cab work. The great clouds of steam belonged increasingly to memory in special cases, while diesel engines offered power that could be managed through long cold runs with fewer stops for water. Still, snow remained snow. A newer engine could not simply lean out the window and ask Vermont to behave. Machines improve, weather remains rude. The windshield wipers sweep back and forth in the cab, pushing aside wet snow that clings and smears. The headlight throws a bright tunnel through the whiteness, but the storm shortens distance. The world ahead appears in pieces. 2 rails, a signal, a crossing sign, a line of trees, a white bank closing near the track. Every curve must be known before it is fully seen. Every descent must be respected early, because a heavy train on icy rail does not stop just because someone has changed their mind. That is a useful lesson for machinery and, inconveniently, for people. A strange little piece of railroad law says that experienced crew members could sometimes sense slippery rail through tiny changes in sound and movement before instruments or passengers noticed anything at all. The engine might hum differently. Wheels might feel too eager. A familiar grade might seem to resist in the wrong way. Is this science? Instinct, or the result of many cold mornings becoming one body of knowledge? Perhaps all 3. Skill often looks mysterious from the seat of a passenger who is mostly concerned with coffee. The train approaches a switch. You cannot see it from where you sit, but you feel a careful reduction in speed. Outside, somewhere near a junction, a railroad worker may have cleared packed snow from the points where one track guides wheels toward another. Snow and ice in a switch can be more than an annoyance. They can prevent the rails from fitting properly, which is why winter railroading has always involved tools, lamps, brooms, heaters, bars, and a certain amount of muttering that is probably best left out of official reports. A brakeman steps down at a small trackside stop, boots landing in churned snow. He wears gloves, a heavy coat, and the alert posture of a person who has learned not to trust any surface that shines. His lantern swings low. He checks the cars, watches the couplings, looks along the wheels, and exchanges signals with the crew. The cold takes his breath in white bursts. The train waits, breathing heat into the morning, while the railroad does its quiet safety work in plain sight and almost nobody applauds. This is unfair, but typical. Civilization often forgets to applaud the people preventing inconvenience from becoming disaster. Historians of labour still wrestle with how to describe railroad crew work in this period as skilled industrial craft, as disciplined teamwork shaped by strict hierarchy, or as a culture of practical knowledge passed from one worker to another through long years on the line. Inside the passenger car, The result feels simple, the train keeps moving, yet that simple fact rests on human judgment. Someone reads the weather, someone knows the grade, someone hears the change in the wheels. Someone steps into the snow so you may remain warm enough to wonder whether there will be more coffee. The engine climbs a long icy slope. Its power comes in steady pressure, not haste. Trees tighten close to the right side of the track. On the left, the land drops toward a stream buried under snow except where black water shows through. The train leans into the grade, wheels gripping, then slipping faintly, then gripping again. Sand may be dropped onto the rail to improve traction, a small gritty answer to ice. There is humility in that image, a powerful locomotive helped by grains of sand, like a giant accepting advice from crumbs. The horn sounds for a crossing hidden beyond a bend. Its note moves through the morning, broad and low, warning any truck, farmer, child, dog, or overconfident wanderer that the train is coming. Snow absorbs the sound and returns it softened. At the crossing, a road appears white and rutted. No cars wait there. Only a mailbox stands near the gate, wearing a hat of snow and looking personally offended by the weather. You settle back and listen differently now. The wheels no longer sound like a lullaby alone. They sound like work made smooth. The warmth around you feels earned. Every cup of coffee, every folded berth, every easy view through the window depends on people awake in harder places. The crew guides the train through drifts, switches, and grades with care that is mostly invisible because it succeeds. Outside, the snow blows across the rails, but the train holds its line. The cab light glows ahead, hands remain steady, eyes keep watch. The mountains open 1 white mile at a time, and the engine carries everyone forward with a patience that feels almost kind. The village comes into view below the tracks as the train rounds a gentle curve along the hillside. At first it is only a gathering of roofs beneath snow, a few chimneys breathing thin grey smoke into the pale morning, a church steeple rising clean and white above dark maples. Then the details sharpen. A main street appears, a small bridge crosses a frozen brook. Houses face the road with their porches buried to the railings. The whole place seems to be waking under a blanket that no one has quite decided to throw off. You sit by the window, warm behind the glass, and watch the village begin its day. The train moves slowly enough that time feels generous. A shopkeeper steps out onto the wooden walk in front of a grocery and hardware store, broom in hand, shoulders rounded against the cold. He sweeps snow from the threshold in careful strokes, though more snow falls around him with quiet mockery. Winter has always admired human effort from a distance, then covered it again. A sign above the store advertises groceries, tools, feed, and dry goods. The windows glow from within. Someone has already lit the stove, and you can imagine the warm smell of coffee, kerosene, leather gloves, flour sacks, and old floorboards. In many Vermont villages of this period, the general store still served as a practical center of daily life, providing food, household goods, farm supplies, mail news, and a place where neighbors exchanged information face to face. That is the plain fact beneath the charm. A store like this is not decorative. It is infrastructure with a bell over the door. Across the road, a woman in a red coat clears snow from a narrow path to the post office. She works with quick, firm movements, pausing only to look toward the train as it passes above the village. Her face is too far away to read, but you lift your hand slightly anyway. It is the sort of wave given to someone you will never meet, which somehow makes it more sincere. She may not see you. The gesture still warms the air inside your own chest. Children appear next, wrapped in scarves and knitted caps, hurrying along the road in uneven little clusters. Some carry books under their arms. One pulls another on a small sled until both nearly topple into a snowbank, which would be tragic if it were not clearly the goal. Their boots stamp dark marks into the clean white road. A school bell begins to ring from a low building near the church, its sound faint through the window, yet bright enough to enter the rhythm of the wheels. A quirky village tidbit says that children in snowy towns sometimes judge the fairness of an entire school day by whether the bell rang before or after the best sledding path had been packed down. This may not appear in official educational reports, but childhood has always kept its own records. From their point of view, arithmetic could surely wait until gravity had been properly respected. Adults, as usual, had other theories. The train passes a row of houses with steep roofs and small fenced yards. One porch holds stacked firewood under a tarp. Another has a milk box near the steps. A man in suspenders and a heavy sweater carries an armload of logs from a shed to the kitchen door. He sets them down, looks up at the passing train and stands still for a moment. Behind him, yellow light fills the doorway. Perhaps breakfast is waiting. Perhaps someone inside is telling him not to track snow across the floor. Domestic life often depends on such timeless warnings. Chimneys send smoke into the brightening sky. Each plume rises, bends, and thins, marking where warmth is being made room by room. You imagine iron stoves, oil furnaces, kitchen ranges, damp mittens, toast, oatmeal, and sleepy faces near windows. The village is not picturesque because it is still. It is beautiful because it is moving in small ways, a broom across a step, a shovel against a drift, a child running late, a dog exploding into the road with the confidence of a mare and the judgment of a potato. Local history specialists continue to debate how much villages like this should be remembered as close-knit communities and how much that image hides poverty, loneliness, strict expectations, and the hard work of staying warm through long winters. The view from the train is tender, but tenderness is not the whole truth. A glowing window may hold comfort, worry, illness, laughter, unpaid bills, fresh bread, or all of them before noon. The village does not become less beautiful because it is real. It becomes deeper. Near the church, a man clears snow from the front steps with a wide push shovel. The steeple clock shows a time that may or may not be correct. Cold weather can be unkind to clocks, and village clocks often seem to believe that being close is a generous public service. The bell tower stands above the street with calm authority, watching over the store, the school, the post office, and the road that curves away between white fields. The train glides past the last houses. A child stops beside a fence and waves with one mittened hand. You wave back, slower than the train, slower than the morning. As the village begins to slip behind the hillside, smoke continues rising from the chimneys. The shopkeeper keeps sweeping. The school bell fades. A truck turns onto the main road, tires crunching through packed snow. You carry the village with you in glimpses: the broom, the bell, the red coat, the sled, the woodpile, the leaning smoke. Nothing grand has happened, and that is exactly why it rests so gently in the mind. A winter morning in a Vermont village opens not with drama, but with labour, warmth, habit, and small acts of endurance. Beneath the snow, ordinary life keeps its steady flame. The train moves now through a gentler country, where the hills open into long white fields and the morning light rests softly on everything it touches. Speed falls away little by little, not with a jolt, but with a graceful easing, as though the train understands that some journeys should not end too sharply. The wheels keep their rhythm, yet there is more space between each sound. The engine breathes with a lower voice. Even the passengers seem to speak more quietly, sensing the last miles without needing anyone to announce them. You sit by the window with your coat folded beside you and watch maple groves slide past. Their trunks stand dark and slender in the snow, rising from the white ground like ink strokes on thick paper. Some trees were old scars where taps have been set in other seasons. Small marks from the patient work of drawing sweetness from cold wood. The branches reach upward into a pale sky, bare now, but holding the promise of spring sap far beneath winter bark. Historical surveys of Vermont farming confirm that maple sugaring has long been part of rural life, shaped by cold nights, warmer days, wood fires, metal buckets, later tubing, and sugar houses that turned thin sap into syrup through slow boiling. Here in winter, the sugar houses stand quiet among the trees, low-roofed and snow-buried, waiting for the first soft change in the weather. You see one near a lane, its chimney dark, its door half blocked by a drift. It looks asleep, but not abandoned. It is simply keeping its season folded inside. The train passes stone walls that wander through the fields with old stubborn grace. Some run straight for a while, then bend around trees, dip under snow, and reappear near a pasture gate. Others seem to lead nowhere at all, which is often what history looks like when you arrive late to the conversation. Those walls were built from stones cleared by farmers from fields. One lift, one toss, one aching back at a time. They mark labour as much as boundary. Winter softens them, but it does not erase the hands that made them. An odd little local claim says that New England stones grow in the fields. Of course, the stones are not growing like cabbages with coal personalities. Frost lifts buried rocks toward the surface year by year, making new stones appear where a farmer thought the field was finally clear. You can almost hear the farmer sighing into the morning air. The land says, "Here, I found another one for you." Very thoughtful of the land, really, relentless, but thoughtful. A farm lane curves away from the tracks. 2 dark wheel ruts pressed into snow. It leads between a pair of maples, past a mailbox, toward a farmhouse set low against the hill. Smoke rises from the chimney in a steady column. A barn stands nearby, its red paint softened by weather, its doors shut against the cold. No one moves in the yard, yet the place feels awake. Perhaps breakfast dishes are being washed. Perhaps someone is checking a stove. Perhaps a radio murmurs in a kitchen while boots warm near the door. Discussion remains unsettled about whether abandoned farm fields in Vermont should be understood mainly as signs of rural hardship and departure, or as part of a larger transformation in which forests return to land once cleared for pasture. From the window, you see that both feelings can live together. A field may hold loss and renewal at once. A stone wall may mark a vanished pasture. While young birches rise beyond it, the countryside is not frozen in one story. It keeps changing under the snow. The train rounds a broad curve. For a moment, the cars ahead appear, dark and shining against the white valley, bending like a ribbon through the fields. You glimpse the engine far forward, steady and purposeful. Then the curve straightens and the view closes again. Fence posts pass in a calm procession. A crow lifts from a branch and beats its way across the field, black against white, making no comment on human transportation. Wise bird, commentary is tiring. The passengers gather their belongings slowly. A suitcase clicks shut. A woman folds a scarf and places it in her bag. A man checks the inside pocket of his coat for his ticket, his wallet, perhaps a letter he does not want to lose. The porter passes along the corridor, offering assistance, his voice low and courteous. The sleeper car has become less like a bedroom and more like a threshold. Beds are folded away, curtains are drawn back. Faces turn toward the windows with that tender expression people wear when they are almost somewhere. You feel it too. A small bittersweet pull. The journey has asked nothing urgent from you. It has carried you through darkness, snow, mountains, stories, meals, and morning fields. Now the world outside grows more specific. The names on signs matter. The road crossings look maintained. The villages no longer feel distant and dreamlike. They feel near enough to step into, near enough to change the temperature of your hands when the door opens. A lane crosses the tracks ahead, guarded by wooden posts and a weathered sign. The train gives a soft warning note. Beyond the crossing, a line of maples frames a white meadow where the snow lies smooth except for the delicate tracks of some small animal. The marks move from wall to wall, purposeful and mysterious. Life continues under the quiet surface. Tiny feet travel their own routes, unconcerned with timetables. The train slows again. The wheels murmur, the fields widen, then narrow near a cluster of houses. You rest your hand against the window ledge and let the last miles pass without hurry. Maple groves, stone walls, farm lanes, smoke, fences, white meadows, dark birds, all of it gathers into one calm farewell to motion. The destination draws close, but the train still holds you for a few more breaths, warm inside winter, suspended between arrival and the sweet vanishing of the rails. The train enters the snowy north with a gentleness that feels almost ceremonial. The wheels slow into a softer clatter, and the long line of cars eases along the final approach beside a row of frost-bright trees. Outside the window, the village opens around the tracks, not suddenly, but in layers. First a coal shed with a roof heaped white, then a freight platform stacked with crates, then a line of houses facing the station road, their windows shining with morning heat and ordinary hope. You rise and pull on your coat. The fabric is cool at the shoulders, still carrying a trace of the night air from the platform where the journey began. Your hands find gloves, scarf, hat, ticket, and the handle of your suitcase. Around you, the sleeper car is filled with the quiet bustle of arrival. Passengers smooth their collars, check under seats, gather books, fold newspapers, and search pockets with the solemn panic of people who are sure they had something important a moment ago. Travel humbles everyone eventually, usually near the baggage rack. The porter passes your door with a courteous nod, helping an older woman lift her case and reminding a young man not to forget the parcel above his seat. His voice remains calm, even as the corridor fills with coats, bags, elbows, and the fragile optimism that people can move in narrow spaces without becoming a public problem. The train gives a final sigh of bricks. The floor leans slightly beneath you, then steadies. Through the window, the station house stands close now. It is wooden, modest, and warmly lit, with icicles along the eaves and a platform swept clear in uneven paths. A sign with dark letters names the village. Snow has gathered on the top edge, softening the word but not hiding it. A church bell rings somewhere beyond the roofs, slow and bright in the cold air. Its sound reaches the car faintly, as if filtered through wool. Railroad history confirms that many Vermont villages depended on depots for passenger travel. Mail, freight, farm shipments, visiting relatives, traveling salesmen, students, and seasonal visitors. A station could be a practical doorway to the wider world, especially when winter roads turned difficult and distance felt larger than a map admitted. Standing with your suitcase in hand, you sense that usefulness. The station is not grand. It does not need to be. It is the place where movement becomes arrival. The doors open and cold air enters at once. It is sharp, clean, and startling after the heated car. You step down carefully onto the metal step, then onto the platform boards packed with snow. The cold touches your face and slips under your collar and wakes every quiet corner of your body. Above you, the train gives off warmth in faint waves. Beneath your boots, the platform creaks. Snowflakes drift down more lightly now, resting on your sleeves and melting into tiny dark spots. The village surrounds you with morning sounds. A shovel scrapes near the station door. A truck engine coughs to life beside the road. Somewhere, a dog barks twice. Not because anything alarming has happened, but because dogs believe arrivals require official notice. A woman in a dark coat waits near the station wall, scanning the passengers as they step down. When she sees the older man with the brown paper parcel, her face brightens, and she lifts one hand, he lifts his in return. The whole exchange lasts only a second, yet it warms the platform more honestly than any stove. A curious station tidbit says that some small depots became unofficial, lost, and found museums by winter. collecting single gloves, mismatched scarves, bent spectacles, lunch tins, umbrellas, and once in a while a child's toy left behind in the drama of boarding. The station agent might keep them near the ticket window, where everyone could inspect the evidence of human forgetfulness. It is comforting, in a way, even in a world of schedules and steel. One mitten can still defeat civilization. You walk towards the station house. The door opens into a room scented with wood smoke, damp wool, old paper, and coffee. A black stove glows in one corner, surrounded by benches polished by years of waiting. The ticket window is framed by dark wood. A clock hangs above it, ticking with calm authority. Notices are pinned to a board church suppers, road warnings, a school event, a sale on feed, and a handwritten message about a missing pair of brown gloves. The gloves, apparently, are still at large. Researchers have not settled on a single way to interpret these old village stations. Some see them as symbols of connection and local pride. Others see them as reminders of dependence on outside markets, outside schedules, and decisions made far beyond the hills. Here, with snow melting from your boots onto the station floor, the debate feels human rather than abstract. The station is both shelter and threshold. It belongs to the village, yet it opens the village to places that may change it. You step back outside and look along the street. The church steeple rises white against a pale sky. Shop windows glow, smoke lifts from chimneys and slow grey ribbons. Children cross near the school with their books held tight. A man pushes snow from the sidewalk in front of a post office. The road curves away toward hills still veiled in morning snow. Everything feels crisp, ordinary, and quietly blessed. Behind you, the conductor gives a final call. The train prepares to continue, but you remain on the platform, suitcase in hand, breathing the cold Vermont air. The cars stand beside you like a long warm memory of the night, their windows bright, their sides streaked with snow. Then the engine pulls, the couplings tighten, and the train begins to move. You watch it pass, window after window, until the last car slips beyond the station roof. The rails hum for a moment after it has gone. Then the village takes the sound back into itself. Bells, boots, shovels, smoke, and falling snow remain. You turn toward the street, stepping into the brightness of a winter morning that feels both new and ancient. The village street receives you with the calm brightness of snow after a long night of travel. Your suitcase feels heavier now, not because it has changed, but because motion has stopped and your own arms have become responsible again. A rude arrangement, really, that a train has been carrying everything so politely, now the earth expects participation. You stand near the station road and look back toward the rails. They run out of sight between snowbanks and dark pines. Two black lines vanishing into white country. For a moment, you can still feel the rhythm of wheels inside your body. It lingers in your knees, your chest, your breathing, and the train has gone, but it has left behind a secret measure, a rocking pulse that makes the still village seem gently afloat. The morning air smells of wood smoke, cold stone, damp wool, and bread from somewhere unseen. A bakery perhaps, or a kitchen with a patient stove and someone who understands that winter mornings deserve something warm. Snow rests on porch rails and shop signs. Icicles hang from eaves like glass teeth, though kinder than that sounds. A church bell rings again, slower this time, sending its notes over the rooftops and into the pale sky. You walk along the main street. Your boots press into packed snow, leaving dark-edged prints. A grocer opens his door and sets a broom against the wall. A woman at the post office window sorts letters into boxes. A boy drags a sled behind him, the rope cutting a narrow line through the powder. The village has no need to perform charm. It is busy being itself. Passenger rail service in the United States changed greatly during the 1960s, as private automobiles, improved highways, and commercial air travel drew many riders away from long-distance trains. That fact sits quietly behind the sweetness of this morning. The overnight train feels solid, warm, and dependable, yet it belongs to a world already beginning to fade. You can sense it now in the way memory gathers around the rails even while they still shine. A curious little railroad detail says that travellers sometimes kept used tickets, dining car menus, matchbooks, or baggage tags as souvenirs, long after the journey itself had ended. Such scraps might rest for years in a drawer, discovered later between old letters and photographs. A tiny ticket stub could bring back the smell of coffee, the creak of a berth, a window silvered by frost, or the exact sadness of watching a train leave a snowy station. Paper, when treated kindly by memory, becomes a small time machine. You pause near a bridge over a frozen brook. Beneath the ice, water moves faintly, making a hidden sound like someone whispering from another room. The road rises beyond the bridge toward houses set among maples. Smoke lifts from chimneys, curtains shift in windows, a dog trots along a fence, then stops to consider you with grave suspicion. You nod, because diplomacy matters. There is a continuing debate among historians about whether vanished rail journeys should be mourned as a loss of shared public experience, or understood as part of a broader shift toward convenience, privacy, and speed. Standing here, the question feels tender rather than argumentative. Cars gave families freedom, airplanes shortened distances, highways opened new patterns of work and pleasure. Yet something was lost when fewer people slept together in an ocean, listened to the same wheels, ate at narrow tables, and watched the same snow fall beyond dark glass. The rails taught a different kind of patience. They asked you to trust a schedule, a crew, a route, and the land itself. They made distance visible. They gave night a sound. They turned strangers into temporary neighbours and villages into glowing appearances between stretches of forest. They let you feel the country pass as texture brick, river, field, pine, bridge, barn, station lamp, mountain ridge, and morning smoke. You enter a small inn near the village green. The door opens with a bell above it, bright and old-fashioned. Warm air greets you, along with the smell of waxed floorboards, coffee, and wood burning in a stove. A woman behind the desk looks up and smiles as if arrivals are ordinary miracles. You give your name, set down your suitcase, and remove your gloves finger by finger. Your hands are pink from the cold. The room around you is simple braided rug, wooden chairs, a calendar on the wall, a bowl of apples, and a window looking back toward the station. From that window, you can see the tracks beyond the road. Empty now. Quiet now, snow begins to settle over the rail tops again, softening the evidence of passage. Soon the village will continue its day without the train in sight. The grocer will sell flour and nails. The post office will sort letters. Children will argue about sledding. Farmers will carry feed. The church clock will keep its own opinion of time. And somewhere down the line, the train will pass another field, another signal, another traveller looking out with tired eyes and a warm cup between both hands. You sit beside the stove. Heat touches your boots and loosens the cold from your coat. Your thoughts grow slower. The night journey settles inside you. Not as a list of stations, but as a sequence of feelings. The platform glow, the narrow berth, the dining car light, the mountain storm, the midnight village, the pale covered bridges, the taste of toast, the work of unseen crews, and the strange sweetness of sleeping while steel carried you through snow. The world outside remains bright and hushed. The rails wait under falling white. The village breathes. You close your eyes for a moment, and the old rhythm returns, gentle as a remembered lullaby, carrying nothing now but peace. You have reached the soft edge of the journey, where the snow no longer falls with urgency, but drifts as if it is tucking the village in for one more quiet hour. Let the train fade gently in your mind, Let its windows become small stars moving through the dark, then fewer, then none. If this story gave you a favourite moment, perhaps the sleeper berth, the dining car breakfast, the covered bridges, or that snowy village platform, leave a comment and tell us what stayed with you. Your memories make this channel feel like a warm station room on a winter night. You may also share where you are listening from and whether snow is falling near you. When you are ready for another calm journey, follow the next video and let the road, river, or rail carry you onward. Rest well, dear friend, and sleep gently tonight. Blessings to you and your family.